Shapeshifters, ghosts, evil spirits, even Sasquatch. Throughout the North American continent, indigenous people agreed on the existence of a spiritual realm or spirit world. I've compiled clips and stories here of the undescribable throughout Indian country, including the US and Canada. Viewer's discretion is advised.
What that is? I don't know. It's scary. Everyone else is hearing it too.
I mean, that almost sounds like laughter. It's actually gotten closer since it started. It's probably only 200 feet, 300 feet from me right now. I don't know what it is or what that is going off right there. You can hear it. I mean, I've seen foxes and coyotes around here for a long time, and I'm not sure why, if foxes and coyotes have been around here that long, why we wouldn't have heard them before. And all of a sudden, since November, things have been just going crazy around our community.
The following incident occurred on the Lummi Reservation in 1993. The witness worked as a JOM associate for the Lummi Youth Rec program. He'd claimed all had been normal as he had locked and secured the now quiet empty gymnasium for the night. It was nearly 10 p.m. when he finally exited the building into the crisp autumn night. Crossing the dimly lit lot as he had 100 times before, the chorus of evening time sounds, crickets, frogs, the rustle of leaves in the trees, were so familiar they usually went unnoticed by him. He removed his keys when immediate silence, nothing, as though reality had been somehow muted. It had only been seconds, where the frantic rattle of his keys were the only audible sound in his ears. As he opened his squeaky civic door and leapt in, an earth-shattering animalistic laugh ran down his spine like a jolt of lightning, ending in what could only be described as a roar or a growl. He'd started the car and backed out quickly, his lights falling over the empty parking lot as he spun his car around. He slowed himself down, pausing and taking a deep breath. With shaking fingers, he turned up the radio. He'd felt safer after about 30 seconds. The narrow road was walled in, with thick thorny bushes and tall cedar trees all around. As his car rounded the second curve, his headlights drifted across a strange sight. 4 tiny children walking in a line in the middle of the road. Before he could take in any more detail, they whipped around, revealing faces, contorted, warped, distorted faces that were wrong. Huge, reflective insect-like eyes, moving in inhuman, jerky spasms, snapping rows of shark-like teeth into the air as if rabid. It was only seconds. His body frozen, unable to respond to the internal panic, slamming long, gnarled, claw-like fingers, thrashing against his hood wildly. A great blow from one of the beasts seemed to awaken his senses, as though his body was all of a sudden allowed to respond. He screamed as he slammed his foot against the gas. The creatures made screeches as they were sprayed with rocks and pebbles. The spinning of his wheels caused the creatures to disperse into the forest like cockroaches, their eyes flashing in the light. Only one of them gave chase, its face illuminated in the red glow of his taillights. The childlike creature's mouth curved upward into what looked like a grotesque smile. If the creature wanted to catch him, it could have, maintaining its speed within striking distance, inches from his bumper. When it stopped, squatting in the middle of the road, tilting its head back and forth, it crept down on all fours, more lizard than human in its movements. As the entity retreated into the thick tree line, it slithered away into the dense underbrush. He had only told me this story as a warning to stop me from walking on the roads on cold winter nights, to prevent whatever it was he was afraid of from happening. The following incident occurred on the outskirts of the Lummi Reservation between the Nooksack Bridge and the Roman Catholic Church on the Lummi Reservation. The following was an account by Bertha Quina, my grandmother, that occurred in or around 1946. Her and my grandfather were dating, and they were coming across the bridge, the Nooksack Bridge, that used to be a drawbridge that would let steamers go up and down the then much deeper Nooksack River. When they were driving across it, they noticed that in the very center of the bridge was a wall of fog, rolling as if it had come in contact with a pane of glass in the middle of the bridge. As they progressed through the long, windy road, through the long, grassy marsh area, my grandfather slowed the truck down. And he leaned over and rolled the window down. And he said, "Who is that?" And he motioned out the window to my grandmother, and she looked and she sees someone standing with very long white hair, almost at the tree line in this foggy field. And she said, "They must be really drunk." And my grandpa just yells in her, scared her, "Hey, do you need a ride?" And they said at that point, the thing jerks around in a blur, coming toward the truck, up and down out of the fog. As it comes closer, it becomes more strange. Its body, a blend between human and monster, of wolf or dog of some kind, with long jagged teeth and muscular back, snapping its vile jaws. It turns within 10 feet of the truck and starts running alongside it, bounding up and down out of the fog. They could get a better look at the creature. My grandmother said she covered her eyes, but she could hear my grandfather as he struggled to get the truck to pick up speed. And he kept going, "Look, look, look at it, look at it." And she kept crying and screaming, "I don't want to look, I don't want to look." She didn't want to look. She didn't want to see. Not anymore. She didn't want to remember. When all of a sudden, it was gone. Nothing. "It's gone," he said. She opened her eyes and looked around. Nothing but fog. When all of a sudden, a slam against the rear of the vehicle, nearly taking them off the road, its tires screeching sideways. They'd made it home that night, with no proof other than a bent frame of their small pickup truck. And when I'd asked her why she didn't tell anyone, in 1947 there was no one to tell. After all, who would believe a panicked woman who had seen something strange in the fog?
Hey! Hey! Hey!
After boating hours from Wanty to the most northern tip of Lac La Marte, 42-year-old Tony William fell over the side of his boat.
They
They managed to swim to an island at the end of a point. All of a sudden, there was a big man standing beside me. He must have walked away because I heard some branches break through out the bushes.
William would spend another 48 hours alone in the Tlichon wilderness before being rescued. For many in the region, the presence of Bushmen, or Nakgan as they're known in the Tlichon language, is a reality that goes back thousands of years.
Sometimes they use a really medicine power. That's why it's really hard to find them.
Rabeska says the Tlichon people and Nakga have lived in the same region since time immemorial. As legend has it, the terrifying human-like creatures have powerful magic. They lure people towards them and steal them, never to be seen again. There's even stories of Nakga stealing moose and caribou carcasses. Rabeska says his grandmother told him a story when he was little about one of his relatives who was lured to an island by Nakga.
So never seen it, never heard it again. And some people they heard him with a scream, talking, scream, help, something like that. But nobody can do that.
Nearly a century later, Rabeska would have his own encounter with Nakga while driving toward the Frank Channel Bridge between Ray and Edzo one morning decades ago. Rabeska says he saw a man standing in the middle of the narrow bridge. He says as he drove up, the man jumped over the railing. Rabeska hurried out of his vehicle to look over the side to see if the man was okay, but there was no one there.
I didn't see it. I don't know what happened.
Rabeska says he's done his best to pass on stories of Nakga to the next generation, but as development pushes people further into the bush, interactions like his and Willia's will only increase. Hillary Bird, CBC News, Yellowknife.